Imagine the buzz of your phone. A message. Can you help me move this weekend? Can you stay late? Can you lend me some cash? Just 3 sentences, but your heart is already racing. Before you even have time to think, before you've even read the whole message, you already feel something. Not irritation, not tiredness, something closer to anxiety. Quiet, almost invisible tension in your chest, like something is at stake. And the strange part is, nothing is actually at stake. It's just a message, but your body doesn't know that, because saying no feels dangerous. Not because you're weak, and not because you don't have boundaries, but because something deep inside, something old and automatic, genuinely believes if I say no, something will go wrong. They'll be upset. They'll think less of me. Maybe they'll pull away. And that feels unbearable, even when the request is small. On the outside, you look like the reliable one. You smile, you nod, you type back. But on the inside, you're a burning building. You're running out of oxygen. You're screaming, but the smile on your face is locked. Today, let's talk about that, about why some of us physically can't refuse, about where that feeling comes from, and why it's so hard to shake. And no, it's not about being polite. It's not about being too kind. It goes much deeper than that. It goes all the way back. People-pleasing isn't just a habit of being nice. It's a pattern studied a lot in psychology, where someone consistently and automatically puts other people's needs, comfort, and emotions above their own. Not sometimes, not in extraordinary circumstances, almost always as a default setting without even noticing they're doing it. You might recognize yourself if you say yes when you want to say no, if you apologize more than necessary for things that aren't your fault, for taking up space, for existing inconveniently, if you feel anxious when someone around you is upset, even if you have nothing to do with it, if it's hard to share your opinion when it differs from everyone else's in the room, and if after spending an entire day helping people and being there for everyone, you come home and feel completely hollow, not satisfied, not warm, just drained. If that's where you are right now, you're in the right place. This is what we do here. We untangle these knots together. Now let's look at what's actually happening inside during that moment of choice. Here's what's important to understand. People pleasers are not weak people. Quite the opposite. Often they are the most sensitive, most attentive, most genuinely caring people in any room. They notice when someone is uncomfortable. They remember what matters to people. They show up. The problem isn't the caring. The problem is the direction. Their sensitivity flows only outward, toward others, toward reading the room, toward keeping everyone okay, but almost never back toward themselves. Their own needs, their own discomfort, their own tiredness, these get noticed last, or not at all. Every request, no matter how small, triggers a lightning-fast internal calculation. A storm of what-ifs hits in a millisecond. What if they're hurt? What if they think I'm selfish? You aren't just deciding whether to help. You're deciding which pain is easier to bear. The guilt of saying no, or the slow exhaustion of saying yes when you don't mean it. And almost always, you choose to betray yourself instead of risking their disapproval. This almost never appears out of nowhere in adulthood. People-pleasing is a survival strategy, one that was learned very early, often so early that there's no memory of learning it at all. It just feels like personality, like who you are, but it isn't who you are. It's what you learn to do. When a child grows up in an environment that there is tension, unpredictability, or emotional pressure, they learn to read the room. They become a human radar. They figure out very quickly what makes adults calm down, what makes the air easier to breathe, scanning the tone of a voice, the way a door closed, the heavy silence in the kitchen. You didn't just notice moods, you tracked them like prey tracks a predator. They start doing that automatically because connection and safety depend on it. If there was tension at home, the child learned, be quiet, be easy. don't cause problems. If praise only came when they achieved something or helped someone, they learned, I am loved for what I do, not for who I am. If someone's moods were unpredictable, they learned, my job is to manage the emotional temperature around me. None of this was taught directly. No one sat the child down and said these words. The body simply paid attention and drew conclusions, and those conclusions became strategies that worked, that kept things stable, kept the peace alive, kept them safe. The child grew up. They're now 30, 40, maybe 50 years old. The original environment is long gone, but the nervous system never got the update. It's still running the old program, still scanning every interaction for signs of disapproval, still calculating, what do I need to be right now so that everything stays okay? And here's the thing, it worked. Back then, it genuinely helped. It kept things stable, kept the peace, kept connection alive. But now, in most situations, it just gets in the way of honesty, of rest, and of real connection. Because you can't really be close to someone when you're hiding behind a version of yourself that's only there to keep them happy. The exhausting part isn't the helping, it's the constant monitoring, tracking other people's moods, adjusting tone, words, energy based on what the room seems to need, keeping 30 invisible tabs open at once. And somewhere inside, over time, a quiet frustration builds. Sometimes at others, why do they always want something from me? And sometimes at yourself, why did I agree again? Why can't I just say it? By trying to be everything for everyone, you slowly lose the thread of who you actually are. What do you want? What do you need? What would feel good to you today? Not to anyone else, just to you. These questions start to feel strange, almost foreign, because they haven't been asked in a long time. The paradox is that people pleasers are surrounded by people and still feel alone, because in most of those interactions, their real self is barely present. What's present is a carefully managed version, agreeable, accommodating, easy, but not quite real. And somewhere underneath, they know it. The good news is this changes, not overnight, not with one big dramatic decision, but slowly, genuinely, it shifts. And it doesn't start with learning to say no. So, how do we start to unravel a knot that has been tightening for decades? It doesn't start with a scream. It starts with a pause. When someone asks you something, don't answer immediately, not because you're being difficult, but because you owe yourself 1 second to actually check in. Just say, let me think about it, or I'll get back to you. In that pause, ask yourself one question, honestly, without judgment. Do I want to do this, or am I afraid not to? Those two things can feel identical from the outside, but they're completely different on the inside. One comes from genuine care, the other comes from fear of what happens if you don't. When you do want to say no, try what's sometimes called the soft no. It isn't a wall, it's a door with a frame. You can say, I can't help with the move this weekend, but I can help you find a good moving company. Or, I really want to support you, but I'm genuinely at my limit right now. You're not making excuses. You're not being unkind. You're simply telling the truth about your current reality. And the truth, said kindly, is almost always enough. Every day, practice getting to know your own desires again. Start a small rebellion. Ask yourself, what would feel good to me today? Not what would be responsible, not what would make someone else happy, just what would feel good. It's a small question, but you are training a muscle that has been switched off for years. Then try testing the old belief. Refuse something small, something low stakes, and watch what actually happens. Most of the time, nothing terrible. The person says, okay, and moves on. The world doesn't collapse. The relationship doesn't end. And your nervous system gets a small, new piece of evidence. It's safe. I can say no. Everything is still fine. That's how things slowly start to shift. Not through force, through experience. One small, honest moment at a time. If you recognized yourself in this video, please don't use it as a reason to criticize yourself. People-pleasing didn't appear because something is wrong with you. It appeared because once a younger version of you really needed to feel safe and loved and connected, and they found a way. That was smart. That was survival. Now you're an adult. You have other options. You get to find other ways, ways that don't cost you yourself in the process. Helping people is one of the most beautiful things a person can do, but only when it's a genuine choice, only when it comes from the heart, not from the fear of what happens if you don't. That difference between helping from love and helping from fear is everything. Take care of yourself. See you next time.